Welcome back.
Thanks.
I think you were gone for like 3 weeks.
Was I really gone?
I think so.
I think I was gone for like 3 months.
Was it 3 months? Time is meaningless. Yeah.
Everything is made up.
I'm
So
I
that's that.
I was really surprised to hear that you made it almost 4 years without getting COVID up until
Yeah,
recently.
I'm really so yes, I did. I was not here last week on account of the COVID that took over my entire body and turned me into a puddle, really. Um, Yeah, so everyone that I have talked to about it is like, "What? It finally happened to you?" Because I was starting to like get this uh I guess very
Jesus
exciting.
complex.
Yeah, I was turning into a white man. Um and I
We'll
just
get you eventually.
um yeah, I was starting to develop this like savior complex almost that was like, yeah, I'm like unfucking touchable, dude. Like everybody I know has gotten it, well, except for Nate. Um, and I'm never gonna get it, and I'm a superhero, and you're welcome for knowing me. Um, and here's the thing: for all of these years, the assumption was always that I was gonna be the person that would bring it into our home, and I would like to say, for the record and the listeners, it wasn't me. It was
It
Nate.
wasn't me.
It
Yeah.
wasn't me.
He got
Yeah,
it on the table. It was.
I don't know what the fuck he was doing. Uh, but I hope he was listening to Shaggy when he got COVID and then brought it
Did,
into our home.
I don't mean to bring up a contentious personal issue, but I'm assuming that you're not an anti-vaxxer and that you have received the COVID vaccinations.
So this is the point in the show when I disclose to everyone that I am indeed an anti-vaxxer. Fuck science. Um and vaccines and community health. Yes, I am vaccinated. I got all of the vaccines. Some of our OG listeners will recall when I got my first vaccine, and was prepared to stick my bare ass out the window of my truck in order to receive the vaccine, um, because obviously that's where you get vaccines in your butt muscle.
I mean, I've
Um,
seen television shows from the 1920s. That's how it
yeah,
works.
I know about you and all of your like antique medical knowledge.
Did you
Yeah,
get did you get sick though, like, or have adverse reactions when you got the vaccinations?
I had, yeah, I mean, I got like what most people did, which was like, flu-like symptoms and like horrible arm soreness,
Mm-hmm.
like was concerned that I would never be able to like wipe my ass again because my arm was so sore. Um,
That's actually listed as one of the primary side effects. Not
Never
not
wiping
being
your
never
ass.
being able to just a itchy ass crack for the rest of your
Yeah,
life.
you're gonna have dirty butt disease for your whole life, but you will
Which
not get
is
COVID.
also very common for 20-something-year-old white men, just in general, like itchy ass cracks
Yeah,
because they
my
don't
transformation is coming a little bit late in life.
full circle.
It's it took me 40 years on this planet, but here I am. I'm turning into my father because he is a white man.
Oh God. Okay, so when I was like 16, I worked at a sandwich shop that was owned by this really nice couple from New York. And me and my coworkers, we were all like high school students, and we were always cracking up because our boss would never wear underwear. And he was like
How did you know that?
because he was a very old man who his pants were like always falling down and his ass was just always
It's
out.
just out. Yeah, okay.
And one time he needed to change into some like fancy clothes, so he changed in the bathroom and then left his jeans on the rack where we kept all of our bread.
I feel like I know where this is going.
I don't know if you do. And so like clearly was in a spot that they shouldn't be. So we had to move them.
Mhm.
And one of my coworkers like picked them up, you know, to like gently fold them and put them on his desk. And when she picked them up, she saw the remnants of what clearly was the evidence of a man who had potentially never wiped his ass. Just like skid marks from a plane that had like lost its wheels in landing and just like destroyed everything in its way. And that image has really burned itself into my memory. And I have you know, lived in a lot of houses in my life, but I've always made sure that a removable shower head was equipped in the shower, because a clean ass is a happy ass.
I think you're right. You are right. And you have not been a co-host on the show long enough to have scarred my brain for life, both with clapping penises and now old man skid marks.
I do it.
And let me tell you, like farts and shit and all that, that's like my wheelhouse. I clean up human shit regularly as part of my job, and I don't like that story.
I mean, I think that there's something to be said about encountering shit in a daily like environment in which it's expected, but then also like just knowing that it was so close to the bags of bread that we were then serving people for sandwiches.
The microscopic airborne feces.
Oh yeah,
that was floating throughout that sandwich shop.
Wow. Yep. Incredible. We did, and we had an A rating with the you know, with the health and safety folks that would come in and do their business, so to speak.
They never saw the shit pants.
They never saw the shit pants. God. Well, I'm glad that you're better, and I'm glad that you have regained your ability to fully functionally wipe your ass crack.
Yeah, I'm gonna be, you know, I think many of us who believe in science and public health will be receiving vaccines shortly. The new COVID vaccine, and I cannot wait.
Me too.
I'll tell you, whatever the fuck this variant was, it can eat your old boss's pants.
I always have a really bad reaction to the vaccines, and I hope that my boss isn't listening to this, because I'm really looking forward to getting the vaccine so I can take like 3 days off of work, because I'll feel like shit.
Oh, hell
but then I'll get a rest for like 3 solid days.
Yeah.
And like every true American citizen, you gotta hope that you get sick so you can take some adequate time off of work to recover.
That's a perfect segue into the next part of the show.
Oh, let's start this show.
Let's do it.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everybody. I am not David Kempa, but what?
What?
You've reached the airwave channels of Voices River City, and I'm Shannon.
And I am Gabe.
And that's it.
And that's it. It's just 2 of us.
We are the only ones. Word on the street is that Skylar, you know, he used to make this bathtub vaccine back in the day. And it's, you know, on account of the COVID surge, he's at home right now cooking up some extra batches just in the name of public health. And I think Kempa is out buying a removable shower head.
Yep. Yeah. After you heard that segment, he realized that his white man syndrome was also on a rampage.
Yeah, he had to run to Target and purchase a removable shower head. The thing is that when you don't show up for a show, we get to say whatever the fuck we want about you. And the reason I know that is because it's happened to me.
Yeah.
But so we've got some shit that we want to talk about. And if you listened to the beginning of this show, you know that it might have to do with labor.
Oh, but before that, tonight, if people are listening to this show the day that it comes out, tonight is a patron-only hangout.
Indeed. So don't miss it. I was just going to say where it was. And
go give us the $5. Patreon.com /
Yeah, I mean, well,
Voices
you know,
River City.
That said, this here podcast that we do, we love to do it. It truly is something that brings all of us joy, and not everyone can be so lucky to do work that they love as we do. But here's the thing, it's still work. And so we would love if you would support us by going to patreon.com / Voices River City and giving us your monies. If you've got a little bit to give, it starts at $5. And if you're just like wiping your ass with dollar bills, I don't know what the fuck you're doing listening to this show, but we'll take some of those. You can give us as many monies as you want.
Maybe
and if
not the ones that are used.
Yeah, don't give us the used ones. We don't want your poop. Yeah, and if you join today, then you'll get some info about where we are drinking beers and hanging out with each other somewhere in
Very excited.
Yeah, super stoked. I guess that's all the housekeeping. Or last episode, Kempa called it house cleaning, and I think it was a mistake, but I thought it was super cute. So now that we're done with our house cleaning, let's discuss.
Let's do it.
Let's get booking into it. I think in the interest of transparency, everyone that is listening should know that well, folks who are listening probably already know this. Gabe and I have never done a show, just the two of us. So we'll see how this shit goes.
Yeah. It's going to be the Wild West out here.
Wild, Wild West. Call me Will Smith.
Man, we got Shaggy and Will Smith in the same episode.
All in one. You know what? hold on tight. Who knows?
Early 2000s hip hop is coming back.
Which is, you know what would be cool if early 2000s cost of living came back.
What? Great segue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So there was a piece in the Sacramento Bee called "Here's How Much Money You Need to Live Comfortably in California and Save," study says. Interestingly, I think the "and save" was extra, like it was totally unnecessary, because who's living in California and saving right now?
Right.
But Gabe, you had posted something on your Insta about, I actually, like, you posted this story about how the fuck anyone affords to buy food, and the day you posted it, I had just ordered food on account of the previously mentioned COVID, because I couldn't go to the store, and I was just like, I can't even, like, a loaf of bread is how many dollars now? Like, it's out of control. I don't know how any of us live, and like, we have gainful employment, health benefits, like, I don't know. I like financially comfortable, I guess.
I make more money than I've ever made in my life, and when we get into this article, I realize how little I actually make. It was really scary that this is the height of like the financial security that I've had in my life, and I'm still, according to this article, like right above the considered like too low to live in California line by just like a little bit. And when I was at the grocery store, for people who don't know me, my wife and I have been together for almost 13 years. And in the 13 years that we have been together, we've been grocery shopping together for about 12 of them. And I remember a point when like a week's worth of groceries for the two of us comfortably would be like $115. And now when we go to the grocery store, and that included, like, this is a big caveat, that included booze.
Yeah.
Like $115 with also like a week's worth of like beer and maybe like a bottle of whiskey to enjoy, whatever. Now our grocery trips are always close to like $250 and no alcohol. We don't buy any alcohol. And I am just like, there's a lot of things about inflation that are always mentioned when we're talking about the increase in prices, but like consumer price index, all that shit, right? It's 3%, 5%, whatever. But you see like these huge percentage increases in food that are way out of line with their 3, 9, 6%, whatever they're quoting at any given time. Like, I know it sounds stupid, but like a can of garbanzo beans consistently was 99 cents.
Yes.
Now I'm going to the grocery store and seeing them as high as $3. Like, and you get, like, if you go and get the Smart and Final brand, it'll be $1.30. That's still a 30% increase.
Right.
And it's just like, this is, how do people, in particular people with children, like afford to live? And not just in California, but like anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, Nate and I have a similar situation in terms of like how much money we spend on food. Even, I would say even last year, I was spending like $180 every week on groceries. And that was like groceries for dinner, included everything that we need for lunches. It included booze. It included maybe even having somebody over for dinner, you know, like, and even some like little extra shit. And now that's fucking impossible. And I think because we're spending about the same as you two, I think the other thing that because you had mentioned this in your Instagram story, is this is not, neither of us are eating meals that include meat, right? So like families that do choose to eat meat or eat dairy, like that is a whole other, I mean, I can't imagine feeding a family with those things also included, right? And then for those of us who choose not to eat meat, or those of us who choose not to eat meat and dairy, it's like, if you are someone who wants to buy like meat alternatives, like that shit is really fucking expensive. And just trying to, and again, you know, like I recently learned of the term DINK. Dual income,
dual income, no kids.
Dang, I was like, Nate brought that home from a friend, and I was like, hell yeah, we're dinks. Like, we're just buying whatever we want. It makes it sound like we're just like we are wiping our asses with money, which is not what we're doing. But yeah, I don't know how families, and as you said, in particular, families with children, are making it work. Like, this is one of the things so for Sacramento, or let's like talk about the sort of the livable wage in each state. It costs the least to live in Mississippi, 45, like 46 grand a year. But for California, it's a little over 80 grand a year. And that, what they did was they used the what the hell is that fucking budget called? 50-30-20. It's half of your income goes to necessities, a third goes into wants, and 20% is for savings. A person has to make $80,000 in order for that to work. Like, right. And minimum wage in the state, in California, is $15.50 an hour. So if you're working a 40-hour week, that's going to come out to about 31 grand. Which is significantly lower than the necessary 80, what was it, 80, 81. I just like, I don't know how. I mean, what I was gonna say was I don't know how to reconcile these, like, the huge gap between what people are earning and what people need in order to save and spend and pay to live. That can be reconciled by capitalism. But I think that, like, anytime I read a story like this, no matter how much I know that everything is fucked, it's just another, like, slap in the face, especially of late when, like, we live in this space where, you know, COVID and then all of the, like, the political climate in Sacramento, and, like, everything just does feel really, like, bleak. And this is just another one of those situations where it's like,
Yeah.
fuck. And
I mean,
in Sacramento, like, even things like food stamps are not as easy to, not that they were ever fucking easy, but it's really hard to even receive supplemental income from the government. Like,
oh yeah, I mean,
it's bonkers.
There's been multiple times, especially in my 20s, where I applied for SNAP and other kind of like safety net programs and was denied because I was making too much. And
Right.
it was just like, how am I making, like, I can't afford to live. And I think that this, like you said, it is very bleak, but I also do appreciate these articles that kind of lay out in a very easy to digest manner, like how bleak it is, because the median income in California, according to this, was $66,600, right? And based off of their 50, 30, 20, like you said, you need to be making about 81,000. So I had to look it up because, we hear all the time that California is like the 5th largest economy on the fucking planet. And I think that that's really interesting for a lot of reasons. One, a lot of conservatives outside of California lovingly call us Commifornia, right? Because we are this socialist hellscape, according to them, which I think is hilarious, because if that was true, which obviously it's not, then a socialist state would be the 5th largest economy on the fucking planet. So, like,
right.
Nuts on your chin, you dumbass. But I taught economics for a few years and I fucking hated every moment of it. Economics is bullshit. It's like completely made up. Everything about it's made up. And one thing that we always have to teach kids is about, like, the GDP, like gross domestic product, gross domestic product per capita. And for those of you who have been a long time out of high school and maybe have not taken an economics course in a long time, GDP's gross domestic product, which is the entire culmination of all goods and services that are produced in a given year, the value of all goods and services. So if you maybe understand economics from a more leftist perspective, you can say it is the value of all of our labor, all of the things that our labor produces within a given year. And then per capita is per individual in a given area, state, nation, country, etc. So the GDP per capita, if you were to take the entire value of all of the labor that produces value in California and divide it up among all the people in California, it would be $96,222. Okay, so then the median income for California is $66,000, which means that we have roughly, what's that, $30,000 of stolen value from every person, just gone, right? And where does
this is the partner piece to the one that we just read. Just like the simplification of it.
Yeah, it's just that, like, understanding that, like, we have, as a state, we grow 60% of the food that is consumed in the United States is grown in California. And we are the 5th largest economy on the planet. And if we were to take all of the money that is produced, the value that's produced by our labor, and give it just to everyone in the fucking state, it would be $96,000 per year, which is higher than the 81,000 that every single person would need to live comfortably after this 50-30-20 breakdown. But the median income is 66. And with the increase in groceries, and I have a 2015 fucking Honda Civic that cost me $63 to fill up the other day. And like, if you would have told me when I bought that car in 2015 that it would cost me $66 to fill it up, I would have been like, you're high. I don't drive a gigantic truck. Like, that car used to cost me $22 to fill up. And
yeah, I mean, it is mind boggling. Like, every time I go get gas, every time I buy groceries, every time, I mean, like, honestly, anything, right? Like, even things like watching fucking Hulu, like all of that shit. It's just like, how much money can we continue to steal from working people, like, so that their lives are just sort of like teetering, or not fucking teetering? Because there are people who, as a result of this inflation, this wild fucking inflation, they have lost their housing, they have lost their health care, they've lost their vehicles. You know, you lose your vehicle, then you can't go to work, you lose your job, you lose your housing. Like, all of this, the way that all of this is connected to not just dollars in a bank account, but public health. Like, having financial security is a direct impact to public health, because people need to, financial security in a capitalist society is how doors are opened, right? Doors to get food and to get healthcare and to, you know, like, it's the driving force. And as the cost of living continues to rise, like, people just can't be comfortable. I mean, like, I've had this conversation over and over and over again with Nate, my spouse, and in public settings, like with friends, that there was a time when it would have been possible to buy a house for us, and we can't. Like, home ownership is not a thing that many of us in this age bracket can strive for. And if you do own a home, like, most often, like, that home was purchased years ago, or, you know, generational wealth is involved, or, you know, maybe you're a veteran and you have like VA benefits to help you buy your home. But like, that whole like fucking work hard American dream, buy a house, you know, have a family, I guess, if that's what the fuck you want, and feed that family, like, that is, even that like basic shit is becoming unreachable for so many people.
You just brought up the fact that like the idea of being able to comfortably feed your family is now part of that dream. Like,
yeah, that's fucking bonkers.
It is. And it's like, I know a lot of people within our community who are now finding, you know, 5-6 friends to go in and buy a house with, right, which is essentially just, you know, setting up the like perpetual roommate situation that you think you're going to leave behind you, you know, when you leave your 20s. And that's fine. If that's what you can be happy doing. I would probably lose my mind if I lived with 6 or 7 other people, even if I really, really liked them.
Would become homicidal. I think it would become homicidal.
So I know that you were just introduced with the DINK term, but I have another one for you, which is DINK-WAD, which is dual income, no kids with a dog. But I guess in your case, it would be DINK-WALK with a cat. Yeah, it's a DINK-WALK. Yeah. But so for folks who have kids or even pets, you know, it's like getting insurance for your animal, and people don't scoff at the idea that like our pets are our loved ones and provide a significant amount of joy that we cannot get in other places living in a capitalist hellscape.
I'm a fucking salty ass bitch, and I would be just like the fucking worst if I didn't have my cat Jimmy and the others.
My dogs, honestly, I would be incredibly bored without them. And I would also just be, I can't imagine, especially during the pandemic, not having my pets like that. I would have lost my mind. But I was going to bring up that on top of all of this, for those of us who have student loans, those are also starting back up in like 15 days. And I had to sit down and kind of figure out what mine were going to be, because I got the notification from Nelnet because apparently Great Lakes isn't handling my loan. So I did the calculation between my wife and I, what we're going to start having to pay in like 18 days is 6% of our monthly income. Just thrown away. So unless I get a raise in the next year that's at least 6%, right, then I've just taken a pay cut. And it's fascinating because there was some like douchebag that was on all over social media today that was like a CEO of being a douchebag.
Right.
Like,
CEO of douchebag.com.
Yeah. And he was like, we need an unemployment rate of like 40-50% to teach workers a lesson that like they need to be grateful for their employers. And like, where do these people, like, in what world do they exist where 40-50% of people out of work would work out for them? Like, they rely on us buying their shit, paying them for services, paying them for things that we produce. And then they expect that like they're going to be okay economically if we're out of work. Like, if you're going to take 6% of my income during a time with like hyperinflation and slow economic growth, that's going to have an impact. Like,
they're just like so fucking far removed from reality that like they can comfortably sit in their like Eames chairs with their like baby lambskin shoes and be like, we need people to not be working because that'll teach them a lesson. But you know what? Like, the real lesson that has to be learned is by those motherfuckers, right? Which like, which is that like our time is your money, and our time is also more valuable than, you know, than ever, you know, like, and so we're seeing this, I guess, wave of people who are just like fucking sick and tired of being sick and tired, or whatever the saying is, right? Like, one of the pieces that we read was the fast food industry calling off a fight with California labor in exchange for a $20 minimum wage. So we see these folks who have been like, you know, there was the fight for 15, and there's been countless numbers of actions, demonstrations, strikes for people who are just like, you know what, motherfucker, like, you want to see a 50% unemployment rate, like, you're gonna end up seeing that unemployment rate unless you give us more money. And that's where like the power that the people hold is really being harnessed and shoved directly in the faces of people like that CEO of douchebag.com. And that is something that's exciting. That's something that is not as bleak as, you know, how much it costs to live in California. But we should talk about this this deal that could lead to a $20 minimum wage for California fast food workers. Like, that would be in 2024, right?
Yeah. And it was like a stipulation about Assembly Bill 1228 that I had to do some like pretty extensive background reading into like what was originally proposed and what currently is being taken out so that the fast food workers are able to kind of secure the $20 wage. And one of the big issues that this was a big deal with like franchise fast food industry, which is most of them. Most fast food industries are franchises. Subway being like the number one fast food restaurant in the world is like one of the biggest franchise, restaurants out there. And what this would have done is it would have made the franchisor equally responsible for violations as the franchisee. So like if someone was working at a Subway and they were dealing with harassment and they were to sue their employer, originally the person who owned that particular location would be liable for that lawsuit. And what AB 1228 was proposing to do was to make Subway as a whole equally as responsible. So there was a couple of things that why franchisees didn't want this, and they were stating that, you know, it would allow the big corporate Subway daddy to come in and exert too much control in order to kind of deter people from suing them. And then, you know, the big franchisor was saying it would increase frivolous lawsuits if they knew that big Subway corporate daddy was on the hook for it as well. So what fast food workers were able to do was kind of take that portion out of AB 1228 in exchange, among other things, for a $20 an hour minimum rate of pay for workers in restaurants that have more than like 60 locations nationwide, which is like pretty much all of them, which I mean, like, obviously is huge and is objectively good. But I also think that it's really important to point out the fact that, again, having just read that article about cost of living, like how far that falls short of what's needed.
It falls about $40,000 short, because a person making $20 an hour and working 40 hours a week is making 41K. And this, you know, the $20 an hour, we also have to remember, you know, that there is money taken out of that, right? For taxes, for if you are working at a place, you know, if their McDonald's is offering you benefits, like you're paying for your benefits, all of that. So at the end of the day, you're still not bringing home 40 G's, right? Like, you're bringing home significantly less, and probably having to work another job on top of that one. But that is not to shit on this whole, like, the power of people, you know, people coming together and saying, like, fuck y'all, because we're the ones that are putting money in your pockets, so pay us more.
Yeah, I definitely think that, you know, there's always, especially when it comes to fast food and its kind of association with, like, quote unquote unskilled labor, and the, like, particularly its connection to the minimum wage. People are always like, fast food jobs are for the teenager who's, you know, 15 years old, getting a job outside of school. They're just like picking up some money so that they can buy their shoes and buy whatever, their fucking video games. And it's like, first off, that's completely disconnected from reality. There are so many people who work in the restaurant industry, and fast food is the predominant restaurant employer, right? So, like, their definition of fast food would also include places, as far as I understand it, by their definition, would have to include places like Starbucks, because that is, by their definitions of what fast food, it would fit in that category. And then there's also obviously the parallels of all the people who've been working so tirelessly to unionize a lot of Starbucks locations. But, like, there are so many cafe chains, fast food chains, that people, that's like the only job that's available to them in their community. You know, if you don't want to get strapped with gigantic student loan debt, that might be a viable option to try to get by. But you know that your employer is going to make it so that you're not working full time, so they don't have to give you benefits. They're going to do anything they can to fuck you over. And I think that this is a huge win for California workers, and anyone who's like, I didn't get paid 20. Shut the fuck up. Maybe you should have fought harder then. Like, the idea of, like, punching down on workers who are making huge wins, which then helps other workers kind of gain the momentum to do the same thing. It's just like, man, class traitors, every single one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most frustrating things I'm the child of a boomer, of boomers. And one of the most frustrating narratives that comes out, I'm going to hear it. I don't go on Twitter or X, whatever the fuck. I don't go on that shit very much anymore. So maybe I won't hear it from the people who usually get at me for boomer busting. But one of the things I think that really fucked us up as children of boomers is this idea that like you go to work and you work hard and your paycheck is what it is, and like we were not taught the value of like self-advocacy or of like the value of unions. And even though like unions have long been a pivotal fighting force for so many people, right, to ensure that there are safe workplaces and that, you know, that people are paid and compensated well in terms of, you know, benefits and paid time off and all of that. Like that's like since the 1920s, these like huge the labor movement has been going strong in California. But for whatever reason, I do think, and there are plenty of people that I know because I've had this conversation quite a bit, that like our parents poisoned our brains by telling us to just go to work and deal with whatever your boss requires of you or whatever, you know, the organization or the fucking restaurant, whatever it is. And so I think like one of the things that we've talked about on this show is what happened during the pandemic and how that really like woke so many of us up to like the reality that without us in your buildings doing the work, you're not going to make money. Like we are the driving force for this economy. And so we were able to, while there was so much chaos obviously with the pandemic that is still going, I don't want to talk about it in the past tense, but we were able to harness this power that like this collective fighting and bargaining power that comes from workers banding together and saying, we deserve more and we deserve better than what the fucking bazillionaires are willing to give us. So I don't know. I've bet $1 for every time I said I'm not a silver lining person. I'd
You'd have a silver lining.
I'd have a fucking silver lining, bitches. But you know, that's one of those things I think that that I point to coming out of whatever the fuck time this is that we find ourselves in, that like we are seeing people who are seeing groups who are willing to fight. And yeah, that is cool. But then you have people who, I think what's frustrating, right, is that we have this situation where we can, you know, we count this win, the fast food win, and, you know, we can list off various other labor movement wins. And then you have these motherfuckers in prisons who don't have to do shit to get paid hell of dollars. And not even that, like, so we're talking about California prison. Pardon the COVID. The COVID got me. The California, what are they called? Correctional officers?
Prison guards. They're just fucking prison guards.
Cops.
Yeah, they're cops, right? They're cops that like don't have to go out on the beat. They get to like sit behind a computer and like watch cameras as like prisoners, you know. Yeah, they're fucking useless is what they are. In overcrowded prisons filled with nonviolent offenders, you know, serving fucking ridiculously long sentences because of biases and racism within the justice system. So
that's it. Just, you know, just like these simpletons.
Right.
Yeah, but those motherfuckers are gonna get some raises.
Yeah.
Thanks to Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, they're well, I mean, so this opinion piece, was it an opinion piece?
Yeah.
No, it was. Okay, came out by the
like an editorial board thing.
Right. You're talking about how the big raises for prison guards was a bad look for Newsom, and I have to agree. I mean, it's
the bee has a perfect take again.
Right. So this, came right. For those of you who didn't listen to the episode, I think it was like 3 weeks ago. I wasn't on it, but yeah, Skylar and Kempa were on it, and we're interviewing some folks who work in the, and I'm going to get this wrong, so forgive me, conservation, environmental. They are the scientists. They are scientists, and the scientists of the state, are on the verge of going on a strike, because the amount that they're getting offered in terms of a pay increase is a pittance, as you would expect for people who are valuable to society, or very often actually, or very infrequently shown that they're actually valued. Whereas correction officers are, according to this reviewed contract, are going to get on average $13,000 more a year. And there was, perhaps a correlation with the $1.75 million fund that they had donated to prevent Gavin Newsom from getting recalled. And the editorial board also brought up the fact that, the correction officers are predominantly men. And one of their arguments was that they needed, cost of living adjustments, especially for the ones who live in communities like Folsom, which I thought,
I loved that line.
It was so good, because there is an abundant amount of evidence that a lot of Sacramento Police Department, and I'm going to include correctional cops, they're all cops, right, don't come from the communities that they serve, right? A lot of them are from places like Folsom, or what's that other place that's like really, really ritzy near us, like Eagle something. Auburn? Oh, no, not Auburn. Hills? No, not that one either. It was Granite Bay. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Where Sean the Lowy lives.
Yes, right. Despite all the evidence that he doesn't. I mean, where you put on your USPS form, that's all that matters. So I think it's really relevant to the fact that this group of people, predominantly men, don't live in wealthier communities who were as a union. And let's remember that that not all unions are created equal under the gazing eye of Papa Marx. That certain workers are still not really workers. They work in opposition to the interests of our class, and cops and correction officers are definitely some of those people. That they are complaining that they can't afford their fucking stucco ass homes in Folsom, and that they need this huge increase. Meanwhile, the scientists who are on the verge of going on a strike are predominantly not men, and predominantly live in the Sacramento area, and were not in a position as a union to provide as much money, if any, to protect Gavin Newsom from being recalled. And of course, what this article said is well, what will happen if these scientists go on strike? Mm-hmm. Right, all of our environmental protection efforts essentially screech to a halt. And so then I would also then pose the question of what would happen if I actually think that correction officers have a clause that they can't strike, but if they were to, well, who fucking cares? Because
then let the folks free.
Right, because you also know that the people who are in the prisons, like serving them food and taking care of them, are not included in this contract, and they're not included as correction officers, right? The people who actually make sure that the prisoners are like able to live from day to day are not these people, right? These are the people who are subjecting them to abuse and all around being pieces of shit. We're not dealing with Andy Griffith, guys. We're dealing with, that one dude from Shawshank Redemption, who was like the bad guy.
Yeah.
Right.
I can see his face right now, and it like makes me angry.
To see Dufresne.
Oh man, what a movie. Yeah, I don't know. This is the kind of shit that is like blood boiling, just like fuck everything, burn it all down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I fucking hate it here. This is the kind of news that really is disappointing. But I think what we're learning is that it's really important that Gavin Newsom not be recalled or not have any stain on his record from in particular six-figure earning white suburbanites.
Right.
So in the name of the comfort of those who have very little melanin and love cops, take the money.
Right.
Yeah. So fucking frustrating.
It makes me sleep better at night knowing that correction officers are really living the dream of that 50-30-20 breakdown,
right? Yeah,
as much as possible, and ensuring that they can comfortably feed and clothe their family members.
Yeah.
They got a little tucked away so they can take a little vacay and really unwind. It's a lot of work.
Their jobs are hard. Their jobs are really difficult, and it's important that at the end of the day they can come home to like saltwater pools. So I too am thrilled that they are getting paid what they deserve.
With money like that, you wouldn't even need to wear the same jeans twice that you put your shitty skitties in. You could just buy new jeans. Yeah. Just new pairs every time.
New jeans, new underwear.
Right.
You could probably have you could have a human bidet for your butthole. Talk about the American dream.
Wait, okay, clarify please, because now I think you just scarred me. Is the
reciprocity
is the human bidet a person who spits water to clean your butt, or is it like the use of their tongue?
Oh,
it's very important.
I was not thinking about the rim job. I think that there are like tiers, like you can get different kinds of human bidets. Like the very basic one is just like me holding a detachable shower head.
Oh, and the poor man's bidet.
Yeah, that's the poor man's bidet. And then like one level up is like the human, because I will not do this, sitting there like spitting the water into the butthole. And then the super mega deluxe is you can choose either the detachable shower head or the human holding the shower head spits into your ass, cleans it up, or they lick your ass and clean it.
Yeah.
So
it's like when you order them and they have like the warm seat, sometimes you just want a warm tongue, Crazy.
Every time I take a shit, that's all I can think about. Is how I wish my asshole was being cleaned by a warm tongue. Listeners, friends, you can have so much more of this level of content if you become a patron. And tomorrow night you can sit at a bar with us and we will just spit all of these different ideas.
Spitball these ideas.
We will spitball and if you wanted to pull your pants down, you never know what you might get.
Right.
So
God.
I am here to sell the Patreon.
We can come up with like products as well, like the Voices River City bidet with multiple levels,
The
and
different tiers of bidet.
yeah. And maybe like even as no, I'm not even gonna say it. I'm not even gonna say it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna, I retract the beginning of that sentence.
There has been so much scarring done on this episode that we refuse to continue to perpetuate intellectual harm.
But I think we're getting pretty close to an hour. So as a way to wrap up, I did want to, you brought up earlier when we were talking about things to talk about on this show that it is Latinx History Month. And I do think that as a silver lining to all of the many labor struggles that are currently kind of in the crosshairs, and also the cost of living skyrocketing and wages stagnating / decreasing, that we can draw a lot of inspiration from historical movements, especially in California. Because we, again, so much of the wealth and just overall culture landscape of the United States comes from California. And I don't mean to be one of those shitty, like, oh, fucking California.
California is the best.
But like,
but it is.
But like name things that like are good that didn't come out of California. It's not very few. It's very few.
I can't
of
even
them.
think of anything.
Right. Like, so and being that as it is, a tremendous amount of the landscape, both physical as well as like cultural, has come from the Latinx community in California, and in particular the labor struggles from that community. So I don't know. I just thought that was a positive note. If you wanted to add anything to that.
When I was there's a piece in the B that is they listed like 5 of the Latino-led labor movements in California history that have championed workers. And I don't know if I've told the story on the show or not, but I didn't taste a grape until I was like almost in high school. And this is like to the dismay of my father. Because my mom, who was born and raised in Boyle Heights, East LA, the daughter of a indigenous mom and dad, my mom was like very inspired and impacted by the work of Cesar Chavez, and we were not allowed to have grapes because of the Delano grape strike, which is like potentially one of the most famous labor movements that happened in California and resulted in activists such as Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. So I guess mostly I think like when I think about the labor movement in my life, I mean, I think that there are a sort of like different ways that I see it show up, but in particular, like as a brown woman, daughter of someone who like was on the streets with Chavez, I think it just makes me want to lean further in. It makes me cheer harder. It makes me, I think that the formative ideas around protecting workers and ensuring that workers are paid well both in money, in time off, in healthcare, all of that is like, it is informed by the labor movement of the 1960s and even prior. But I guess I just kind of, I always, at any chance that I can, I want to call out the Delano grape strike, because it is something that like really was like, it's a huge thing that has formed me and those workers that are still out there in Delano and in, the fucking armpit Central Valley are still fighting for rights. Farm workers are just. These are the folks who are, we continue to eat through a pandemic
Right.
because of them going to work every day and ensuring that we have food on the table. So I think that all of the actions related to the labor movement are incredibly important, but I really amplify any sort of labor movement that is going to directly and positively impact farm workers. So
yeah, and contemporarily, is that the correct word? A contemporary struggle, especially since the pandemic, was the push for a safety net for all, which is in California is trying to extend the social safety net programs, primarily the ones through EDD, UI, paid family leave, paid sick days, for undocumented workers. Given the labor landscape of California, so many undocumented workers at the beginning of the pandemic were left out of work or inconsistent work, and were unable to secure any of the benefits that many of them pay into and are never able to actually gain access to. And this is actually something that Newsom has shot down 2 years in a row. And the Safety Net for All coalition has been working, to try to they're a ground up grassroots coalition of organizations that are working, and they're led by the campesinos, which are the workers who are directly pushing for this legislation. And I think it's incredibly important that people, remember the fact that vital workers was a very 50-cent term, at the beginning of the pandemic, and without so many of these workers, we literally would have nothing. Our economy comes to a screeching halt, and they are always the first to fall through the cracks and the first to be subjected to, hyper exploitation and abuse, and their dignity, I think, is consistently left at the door when it comes to the workplace. And people just assume that there's always going to be a steady supply of workers who are available to do this labor, and it's just not the case. And we have a long history of just absolutely abusing these people who do so much for this state, and are asking for just the base amount of humanity and dignity to be given to them as well. And I just think that it's incredibly important, as well as SB 686, which is for domestic care workers, which is often a large amount of undocumented folks who work in domestic work as well, who are hyper exploited, harassed, subject to all sorts of violations in the workplace, and don't have any, in a lot of cases, any legal framework to rectify that. So,
yeah. Well, we've ended on a real high note.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess, we're over time. But go to patreon.com/voicesrivercity and then come and join us tomorrow.
Yep.
No, today you're listening
tonight,
Thursday, September 14th. We would love to see your face. And to those who are not patrons, we'll hang at some point. Not that we've talked about it or even have a plan to do that. I don't want to make empty promises there, but we love you too. But we love our patrons a little more.
And until then, keep your asses clean.
God, I really hope your ass is clean. And may your ass be licked if you so choose. That's the show. Bye. We could just spend 20 minutes singing like 90s R&B hits and then start the show and just
I
see
like
what
that.
happens. I'm sure.
See if he keeps it in there.
Yeah. Oh, he will. He has definitely put some of that shit at the very end of a show before, and it is not appreciated. But whatever. Okay, I gotta do the intro.
Do you like mark that or something, or it doesn't matter?
Nah,
Just like,
Skylar usually figures it out ish.
all right.
We'll make